Welcome, everyone, to Healing Wednesdays and the Circle of 12. And, of course, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
This is the first program of 2022. I am Lee Carroll.
I'm Monica Marani, and I still can't get used to 2022.
I know. We
How
always say
amazing.
that. And we're going to make the mistakes every time we write the date.
Probably.
For a little while. This is Healing Wednesday, of course. That's why you're here. Every Wednesday evening, we come together with special guests, questions and answers, discussions, meditations, and, of course, a Kryon channeling. Now, this is our once-a-month free program. So we appreciate your YouTube subscribers, all of those of you who are here from YouTube, and all of you who are joining us, of course, for the first time. And we always have a number of those from anywhere on the planet. Special welcome to members who receive one of these programs every single week of the year. Every single Wednesday, you get one. If you're not a member and you follow the Circle of 12, this would be your 15th program here on YouTube. If you are a member, this is program number 65. Now, we don't normally number the programs. I'm just giving you that for a reference of how many programs you would have had you been a member. So all members receive access to every single Healing Wednesday program and every program we've ever done. So that library is building all the time. And of course, the YouTube library is also building. This library never expires for you, for any of you, and you can watch these programs as long as you wish. So, YouTube subscribers, take a look at some of the great programs from last year and some very prominent guests.
Now, for the Circle of 12 members, there's a comprehensive index that we've created to help you find the speakers that we're on, the channeling subjects from Kryon, and the Circle of 12 experience for every single program that's in our library. And if you're not a subscriber, well, it's super simple and easy to become one. Simply go to cryonmasters.com and you can sign up to be a member. Here is some really good advice. If the streaming is really poor in your area and if there's streaming issues from our end, please don't be frustrated and tearing your hair out, because the replays are going to be available on YouTube and in the membership portal for the members. They're going to be uploaded very, very soon after the live stream. And like Lee said, we don't remove them after any amount of time. The programs are recorded as we go, so the replay is perfect and it won't have any of the live stream issues that you might be experiencing because of the internet. So now we want to move into the questions and answers, the questions that we've received from our beautiful Healing Wednesday light workers. We have one from Akila. Akila is in Paris, France, and is asking, do we have to be great meditators to go through the veil? Is there any easier method to go across the veil for non-meditators? Namaste.
Well, Akila, I don't know if you're going to like the answer or not, but I want you to forget everything anyone has ever told you about the veil. I have some great information for you, and it's what Kryon has taught us. The veil is not something that separates us from the divine. It's instead something that is created, are you ready? By our own vibration. It's created by our own consciousness. When anyone decides to step into their own power, they're crossing the veil. If anyone decides to step into their own magnificence, they are immediately crossing the veil. When in the Circle of 12, which is going to happen in just a few minutes, we're crossing the veil. When we cross that bridge, that's always there. You might remember we actually go through a mist in that exercise, and that is the metaphor of the veil. So the veil is not a wall, or it would have been called in metaphysical history, the wall. It's a veil. Think about the metaphor of something veiled. It's something masked out of sight, and what is behind it is available at any time. So, to answer your question literally, anyone at any time can move beyond the veil. You don't have to be trained for it. You don't have to be a big meditator. It's when we get out of our own reality. It's out of our own linearity, our own lives. When they say we get out of our own way, that's when we cross the veil. This means that any time you give intent to go beyond what is here, when you step into a meditation that's your own, you cross the veil. So, every Healing Wednesday we do this. It's the very premise of going from a four-dimensional reality, ours on our planet, to a multi-dimensional reality, which is your soul. That's when we go across the veil, and then we're at the soul level. Akila, you have permission to cross that veil anytime you want to, and Spirit will welcome you when you do. And that's the reason that the actual veil is that which hides the magnificence of who we are. It's our own veil.
That's such a great answer, Lee. And our next question comes from Melissa. Melissa is in California, US. How may I connect and channel an appropriate entity energy similar to yours?
Well, Melissa, I have an answer. An answer may surprise you. I don't have an answer. We do not pick the entities of who we channel. They choose us. So there's a bigger answer, and it's a good one. Let's get into your question more. First, are you already channeling, or is this something that you would like to do? And I don't know which it is, so I'll address it. If you're not already channeling, there are many classes available to introduce you to it and test to see if you like it or if you're ready, if you want to. Anyone can channel, and that's what we teach. But let's say that you're already channeling, and you've asked this question because of that. And what I found is this, that Spirit honors our intent. So if you have the intent to bring to you something like has come to me, it will be that way. You will have something happen because Spirit honors us. Give intent to have this happen for you and see how it goes. I have seen this very profoundly with others who then have a strong presence or an energy or even an angelic group that will show up, and they'll realize that they're actually in touch with something else besides themselves, and they start channeling. Let me give you an example, and I love to talk about this because in the beginning of my work, two of my colleagues who were working around me, and one was a manager of Kryon, were not channels at all. Absolutely not. They had no channeling experience, and they both started channeling. So it wasn't that it was catchy, it's just that they saw the process and it came to them because they gave intent. And it wasn't subtle. Both of them are wonderful channels today. They've been successfully doing it now for years. Now, you may have even heard of them, so I'll give you the names because I like to honor them. One was a man named Steve Rother, and he channels the group, and he started something called the virtual light broadcasts way before anyone was streaming. He was like a pioneer of what we do today. The other one was named Jeff Hoppe, who started out as the Kryon manager for some years. And within a few years, he was a full channel of Tobias and then later on Adamus. Now, Jeff and Linda Hoppe have a profound international work called the Crimson Circle, and Jeff is a major channeler today and is doing wonderful work for the planet. Both of those individuals had the energy come to them, and the rest is history because they gave intent. So this comes with intent, as I said, and a little work to try it out and try it, work with it, even involve perhaps others so that you feel comfortable with it. That's what we all did. So why not you, Melissa? Maybe it's time. This shows the magnificence of Spirit and the way they work with us. I
love that answer, how things come to you when you give intent. So it couldn't be more simple than that. I know it's a lot more complex, but what a great place to start, giving pure intent. Our next question comes from Antonio. Antonio is in Portugal and is asking about Kryon. Why the name Kryon? Does it have any special meaning?
So, Antonio, I asked that very thing back when Kryon showed up. In fact, I didn't even like the name. I thought it was kind of stupid. So I'm just being honest, folks. So rather than giving you an answer that is from me, because I don't have one really, how about giving it to you from Kryon? Because he has answered that in Cryonese, and you'll see. I'm going to ask Monica to start to join me in giving me some quotes from Kryon, then I'll continue to answer this question of why Kryon as the name.
Now, Kryon has given various answers over the last 25 plus years. So we're going to read some of those quotes. This first quote from Kryon is this. Dear one, this is difficult to explain. It's a sound within your energy, and it has messages in it within the sound. The sound is similar within all human hearing. So it has meaning to the cellular structure of all. It's not really my name either, but only the one which is applicable to your 4D. We have also indicated that it has a family connected to it, who also have similarities within the sound.
Kryon continues. The meaning? It's a name of an Earth support group who is about physics. And yet it has a hidden sound meaning that is connected to the actual purpose of the group. It's a love group, Kryon says. So within the name, there is a communication of what it does, but with some 4D dichotomies, unquote. Now that's Cryonese. I call it Kryon speak. And it doesn't really help with a succinct explanation because there's always hidden things in what Kryon has to say. But we get the idea that it's all about the energy of the sound of the name. So here's a little more of what he said.
Kryon continues, it is a name which is a tone name and which carries an energy, not a meaning, and an energy that is not just for the English language. The very name, Kryon, creates a certain vibration in the air when it is pronounced, which helps to posture the listener's perception in a certain way.
I think the funniest thing he said, lastly, very, very early on, because I objected to the name, he said this, and here's his quote, "We didn't want the perception to be too fluffy, you see? For then the name would be accepted or rejected immediately by a certain group of those who like or don't like fluffy," unquote. So I think what Kryon is trying to tell us here is that the name, if it was too angelic, it would be like all the other names of the time in 1989, who people were channeling. Then there would be many who would simply think it was another angel, would not then understand it might have been someone who was the foreteller of the next 50 years and beyond.
And I think, Lee, what also Kryon represents, which is really hard for us to get our head around, is that Kryon says we are not masculine or feminine. We have no gender. Even though the essence of the group, it's a love group, remember? And so the essence is feminine. And yet, you'll often hear Lee or I refer to Kryon as a he, and that's because he is being delivered through Lee as a masculine voice. So I want to just share one quick thing here, and that is that Lee will channel Kryon at Dr. Amber Melly Harwolf's Sisterhood circles. And when Kryon channels through Lee in this environment, it's where Lee is completely stepped aside and doesn't hear anything that Kryon says. I will often have to repeat it back to Lee. All the other times Lee channels Kryon, Lee is completely present with Kryon and can repeat to you exactly what Kryon said. And Kryon said the reason for that is to honour the feminine and to not be fooled by the masculine voice. And so with that neutrality of gender, let's move into a meditation where we welcome the energies of both the masculine and the feminine to be balanced within our body. So I invite you to close your eyes And allow everything within your body to just relax. Have some deep breathing. And feel the energy within your body. And focus on the attributes of masculine energy and what they mean to you. You may think of words such as protection, strength, courage, and allow yourself to focus on the energy of the divine feminine. And you may think of attributes such as love, compassion, patience, wisdom, and understanding. And now ask and give the intent to balance the masculine and the feminine within. Give the intent that we now balance the energies of divine masculine and divine feminine within the core of our being. And when we feel, sense, or imagine this balance of divine masculine and divine feminine, know that this is the energy that Kryon comes to you with this full complement of divine masculine and feminine. So now we welcome in the beautiful energies of Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. These are amazing times. The times perhaps you didn't expect. The entire thrust of this program for the last year, for this next year and beyond, is to help you through this time. And the best way to do it is that which I have developed and told my partner would be the Circle of 12. A metaphor for the structure of all things, the 12s, the beauty, the majesty of that. But the main one is to step into an area that old souls are not used to stepping into, and that is your own magnificence, your own soul. This month, we present 4 channelings, and this will be the first of the 4. And those 4 channelings are going to be called things which are hiding in plain sight. So hiding in plain sight is the title, and it's going to be a revelation of the true magnificence of every human being. The fact that they are hiding means that they are unknown to most. Something which is hiding usually means that there is an intent in the hiding, and there is. We have told you from the beginning that free choice is that which we give you to develop and find things which are hiding. That if you simply wander on this planet and look around with what people tell you, with what is there, with what is presented to you in 4 dimensions, you will not see it. The ones who were the best at discovering the things that were hiding were the indigenous. They recognized right away that there was more to what was humanity themselves than what they saw. And that led them to so many things that today you are rediscovering. They discovered the things that were hiding in plain sight, including the connection to the earth, the connection to the ancestors. They knew about astronomy way before there were astronomers. They understood what was in the sky and how it moved, affected them, just like the astrologers of today. So there are many things that are hiding, and we have chosen 4 of the major ones. And the major ones that perhaps you know or you think you know. And this may be a review for the old souls, but there are so many listening to this who need to hear it. How do I begin to tell you what the first one is? And it's the greatest one. We don't save it till last. We want to reveal it on this program in all of its beauty and its glory. Because these are the things you are not told, dear ones. There is no major belief system today who will give you this statement or this information the way I am going to give you now, and that makes it controversial. What if you didn't have it right? What if all of those belief systems developed so many years ago, thousands of years ago, with all of the trappings and all of the rules? What if that was developed in an old energy because things were hiding and they didn't know any better? What if they misinterpreted some of the greatest things on the planet that were given to them, and today they're being revealed? What if you are far more magnificent than anyone ever told you? And that's the premise. There is a grander truth out there, dear ones. The biggest statement we want to give you is this: hiding in plain sight, you are a piece of God. To some, this would be blasphemous, for their whole premise of their belief system is that you are nothing and you were born dirty and you don't even deserve to look on the face of God because God is so beautiful and you are not. And if you've been told that, it's tough to rewrite that story. But I'll tell you, it's just the reverse. You have a soul. You know you have a soul. Do you think God would have given you a dirty soul? Because the soul is part of God, and you have a soul. What does that tell you you are? Dear ones, you have inside you the ability to do what the masters did on this planet. It is beautiful, beyond beautiful. It is magnificent. It comes with the promise. And the promise is this, that you can perform the same things that the masters did. And then we start telling you that it comes with consciousness and intent and practice and the energy of the earth, which has shifted to allow it. That's what the Circle of 12 is all about. There was a master named Jesus, followed today by 1 billion people. And it was carefully done. He was put on this planet as a man, not an angel. An angel did not come down called Jesus. It was a man. And through this short life of this man, especially toward the end, he showed everyone who was there what he could do. And it was miraculous, truly, today. He woke people up, seemingly, who were dead. He created things out of nothing and was able to supply the fishes and the loaves and when there were none. He walked on the water. He did so many things that those who will follow him will talk to and say, you see, that's why we worship him. He didn't come to be worshiped. Dear ones, that man came to this planet to show you what you can do. He was called the Son of God, and yet he himself, in certain ways, perhaps in veiled ways, in certain metaphors, said, you're all sons of God. And that was the reason he came, to show you what you could do. And in an old energy, dear ones, he was worshipped, and then, of course, he was disposed of. That's an old energy of the planet. That's what you did. with the prophets at the time, and he wasn't the only one. Now, here's what I want to tell you. Almost everything he did is being done today by other men in certain countries that the Western world is not even aware of or doesn't want to acknowledge because it's just too strange. Creating things out of nothing, yes, it's been done. Awakening those from the dead, yes, it's been done. Touching people and having them go into spontaneous remission, yes, it's being done. Creating changes in physics so you can do things even as odd as walk on the water, yes, it's been done. In this modern day, you can find it, and it's there. Because that was the message of the Master. You can do these things just like I can. Because inside you, you have the creative source. That is the legacy that you come with, old soul. This entire time, from 2012 to now, has been shaped by the changes in the magnetic grid when I arrived in 1989, moving in a way so that consciousness could also start to shift and move. The relationship between consciousness and magnetics has been shown in science and proven. Therefore, consciousness is energy. And now you know, consciousness can play an important part in physics, and they're going to discover that. Already they're starting to work with that which is coherence, and that is what one human being can do with another and with groups. All of these things are starting to rewrite what you think you can do. And now some of those who come to this program as guests will start to use the same words that I have used for all these years. Look for the words magnificent. That's who you are. It's difficult to rewrite a story, a narrative, perhaps, that you've had from birth that would say to you that you are not able to do certain things, that you're not worthy to do them. And people in high respected places, perhaps even those you love, will face off to you and look in your eyes and say, you know, don't you, that you're not worthy. And you believe them. And it's not a conspiracy to make you unworthy. It's the best they had, dear ones. It's their belief, dear ones. But what if, just what if, it's changed? And now the revelation of a grander truth, a beautiful truth, can be yours. What if the sun has come out spiritually and given you the ability to look around for yourself and say, well, maybe they got it wrong. And it's not their fault they got it wrong. And they're still getting it wrong. It's not their fault because it's their narrative and their story and what they were told and what they believe. But what if it's so much bigger than that? And in that, perhaps you don't need a system at all. In that, perhaps all you need is love and the compassion to take the hand of Spirit and say, yes, I now understand that I am part of the plan that is God, that I'm here for a reason that is far, far grander than anything anyone ever told me. And that reason is to help the planet with compassion and love. And I can do it just like the masters did it with them. And I can assemble people who want to know about it because I love them so much that they'll see that and they'll be at my feet and I can tell them about love. And some of you will. And that's why some of you are here, to emulate the masters of this planet who came here for one reason, to tell you about the love of God and show you what you could do. Hiding in plain sight is a magnificence you didn't expect. Mastery. Ascension consciousness. and the beginning of the rest of this planet's energy. And that's why you're here. I am Kryon, in love with humanity. In love with humanity for what you have ahead and what you'll be doing. And so it is.
And just take a few gentle breaths as you make that transition from the beautiful space we were in, those beautiful energies that we received, and those soft breaths, make them deeper now, and open your eyes if you've had your eyes closed. And again, I invite you to bring your awareness back into your body. Bring your awareness back into the room. And Lee and I feel truly humbled by the next guest that we have spending time with us. And it's Dr. John Demartini. And I just want to make sure that John is there with us. John, are you there?
I'm there. I'm here.
Wonderful. Well, Lee and I want to tell everyone about you.
Probably one of the most busy guests we've ever had on the show, and we're so actually really privileged to have him and to have a little bit of his time. Dr. John Demartini, a polymath and a world-renowned human behavior expert. Over 4 decades of research across multiple disciplines, his work has been described by students as the most comprehensive body of work, an extensive library of wisdom, and wisdom of the highest and most valuable order. His mission and vision is to share knowledge and wisdom that empowers you to become a master of your own life and destiny. I love that part. He's an international published author, a global educator, and the founder of the Demartini Method, a revolutionary tool in modern psychology.
Now, Dr. Demartini has studied over 30,000 books. I want to say that again. He's studied over 30,000 books across all defined academic disciplines, and he's synthesized the wisdom of the ages, which he shares online and on stage to over 100 countries. Now, his presentations, whether keynotes, seminars, or workshops, leave clients with insights into their behavior, and more importantly, gives the keys to completely transform their lives. His signature program is the Breakthrough Experience, and that's been delivered in 64 countries to over 100,000 students to date.
Dr. Demartini is the author of over 40 self-development books. I have no idea where he gets the time to do this, and manuscripts such as the #1 bestseller, The Breakthrough Experience, which has been translated into 36 languages. Dr. Demartini, thank you so much for being on the show. The first thing I want to know is not where you get the time. How did this happen? When did you know that you would be then, doing this kind of work? Was it early or did it happen later?
One night in 1972, November 18th, I was at a Sunset Recreation Hall on the North Shore of Oahu in Hawaii. I was led there as a result of going to a health food store, and a gentleman that I met there and said, "You need to go to this yoga class." And it was at a yoga class. And a special guest speaker named Paul C. Bragg was attending and speaking. And he was an elderly gentleman. And he began to speak, and he touched my life in a way that's hard to describe. He said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be guided by the soul in order to maximize who we are as a human being. He said that you want to set goals for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your state, your nation, your world for 100 to 120 years and beyond. And he said, what you think about, what you visualize, what you say to yourself, how you feel about yourself, and the actions you take can change the trajectory of your life. Well, prior to that, I was a high school dropout. I was illiterate. I didn't read my first book until I was 18. I was told by my first grade teacher that I would never be able to read, never be able to write, never be able to communicate effectively, probably not amount to anything or go very far in life. And I was a high school dropout. I was a street kid, and I was living in a tent at the time. And I'd nearly died right about 2 to 3 weeks before that. And in the recovery of that, that's what led me to this little yoga class. And that night, that man with that 1 hour got to me. It was the first time in my life I ever thought maybe I could overcome my learning problems and be able to properly communicate. And that night, after hearing him, I thought maybe I could overcome this and do this and become intelligent someday. And that was the beginning of a quest to want to overcome learning challenges and learn how to read. And I flew to Los Angeles, went back to Texas, hitchhiking back to Texas, and took a GED and miraculously guessed and passed, and then failed trying to go to school again and almost gave up. And my mom found me crying on the living room floor after failing a test. I got a 27. I needed a 72 to pass. She said, "What happened, son?" I said, I guess I'll never be able to read or write effectively. I don't think I can do this. And she said to me something that only a mother could say. She put her hand on my shoulder. She said, "Son, whether you become a teacher and travel the world like you dream, whether you go back and ride big waves in Hawaii like you've done, or return to the streets and panhandle as a bumming child, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what." And that moment of unconditional love, that moment of certainty, that moment of grace, that moment of presence made my hand go into a fist and look up and see a vision that I saw the night I met Paul Bragg of me standing in front of 1 million people speaking. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called learning and reading. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. I'm going to master this thing, of educating. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across the planet. I'm not going to let any human being stop me on this, not even myself. I got up, I hugged my mom. I went into my bedroom, and I got a dictionary out, a Funk and Wagnalls dictionary, which I still have. And I started memorizing 30 words a day. And my mom helped me memorize these 30 words and pronounce them and use them in a sentence. And I grew my vocabulary 30 words a day until the end of the year. I had 10,000 new words. And I was starting to pass school. And I never stopped reading from that day forward to this day. And I read every day. And I started reading faster and faster and devouring everything I could. By the time I turned almost 19, my mom said, "What do you want for your birthday? You were born on Thanksgiving. What do you want for your birthday and for Christmas?" I said, "I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings humanity's ever created by the greatest minds who ever lived from around the world." And she said, "Are you sure you don't want a T-shirt?" I said, "Mom, I want the greatest teachings on earth." So she contacted her brother, my uncle Ralph, who was a professor at MIT at one time. And as a gift, he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates on a flatbed truck to our home. They laid them down on the ground from the flatbed truck. I got a crowbar out, opened them up, and I filled my room with thousands of books. And I started going to work. And I never stopped. And that opened up doorways of many different ologies. And I wanted to be a man of letters, and I wanted to study everything I could from every different discipline. And I made a commitment to read at least 100 books in every known discipline. And so that's the pursuit. And I started teaching, and now I've spoken in 159 countries, and I get to speak every day almost, and I love it. I'm just as inspired today as I was that moment I met Paul Bragg. And it still gives me tears of gratitude to get to do what I do.
I think of all the things you could have given us in your knowledge and wisdom, that is one of the best things for people to have heard so far in this broadcast. I think that may be the pinnacle.
Absolutely. I was just seeing, if Kryon talks about everyone inside has a spark. And as you told your story, it was the spark got ignited, and it's an eternal flame that never diminishes. And there is so much hope in your story. So we are in such an interesting time globally now. Is there something you can tell those who are in stress and conflict and fear What are the things that you could help them to navigate that?
Well, William James, the father of modern psychology, made a statement, I'm doing a little paraphrase, that the greatest discovery of our generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions of, mind, their attitudes of mind. And I'm a firm believer that we have control over three things in life: perceptions, decisions, and actions. And so it's not what happens to us on the outside, it's how we decide to perceive it. And so I'm a firm believer that there's a neutral event out there until we subjectively bias our interpretation of our reality and see things in some sort of polarized fashion. And if we see something that's terrific, we're going to fear its loss. If we see something terrible, we're going to fear its gain. And we're going to induce this phobic life because of our polarization of perception. But if we ask a question, which our intuition is constantly attempting to do, to bring us back into homeostasis and balance, and liberate ourselves from the infatuation and resentments that occupy space and time in our mind and distract us. But if all of a sudden we ask the question, how specifically is whatever's happening to me right now that I think is distressful, how's it actually helping me fulfill my mission on earth? How's it helping me do something extraordinary of contribution and service to the world? How's it helping me become the magnificent being that I'm innately at and who I really am, my authentic self? The quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. If we ask the question, how specific is it helping us get where we want to go, and not run our story as a victim of history, but allow ourselves to be a master of destiny, the world on the outside that we think is a challenge is an opportunity for us to be the magnificent being that we are actually here to shine from the inside. So I'm a firm believer in asking that question, how specifically is whatever's happening helping me fulfill what's most deeply meaningful, where I can go and be of greatest service? If you answer that question and don't stop and keep doing it to get tears of gratitude, your stressings will be your blessings.
There are a lot of people I don't think are mature enough to actually get to that point when they're in distress to ask that question. That's a good thing to do. So how do you manage that emotion?
Well, our emotions are based on our ratios of perceptions. If we are choosing to see the downsides and not the upsides, or the upsides without the downsides, we're going to be, avoiding or seeking, and we're going to activate our amygdala. We're going to be in an instinct to avoid the thing that we think's got more drawbacks and benefits, and we're going to be caught in an impulse that's uncontrollable for the things that we think have got more upsides and downsides. If we take accountability and be objective and see things as they actually are, not as we assume they are, and give ourselves permission to be empowered and a master of life and not this victim of history, we can transform it. We don't want to sit there and wallow in our pity parties and trauma dramas. We want to empower ourselves by taking command of our perceptions, decisions, and actions. And if we fill our day with the highest priority actions that we can, our day doesn't fill up with lower priority distractions that keep us from being empowered. So I'm a firm believer in finding out what's really valuable, what's really important, and concentrating on the solution, the flowers. Otherwise, you're going to keep pulling weeds.
Beautiful analogy. And one of the issues that we haven't really discussed much on our programs is the subject of addictions. And it's really difficult for family members to watch those who they love suffer through an addiction on any level. What can you advise for anyone watching someone going through an addiction, or someone who has an addiction and they want to be off it, but they don't know how?
Well, I'm not the most orthodox individual, as you probably guessed already, on my responses. So the first thing I do, and I've had the opportunity to work with people that have all types of addictions: food addictions, sex addictions, drug addictions, etc. Believe it or not, there's unconscious motives. And I'm first thing I have to ask them to do is, what's the benefit you're getting out of doing this? And they'll tell me, well, it's killing me, it's this and that. I know, but no one is ever going to make a decision unless they perceive, conscious or unconsciously, more advantage than disadvantage, or they're not going to do it. So deep inside, there must be a perception in your associations that you've made in your life along your journey of more advantage and disadvantage doing that. So can I give a story, an example?
I would love to hear it.
I had a lady, I was doing a reality TV show filming in Universal Studios a number of years back. And they gave me 12 people to transform their life, 2 hours each in 24 hours, nonstop. It was a real wild marathon. And there was a lady there that walked in with 2 boxes of food and came in and said, I brought food for everybody in case we get hungry and everything else, and then went on to eat more than a week's worth of food in front of me. I mean, it was amazing. And of course, her reason for being there was that you got to help her stop eating. That was the thing. And I said to her, so we got 2 hours here now. So the first question I have, because you're saying that you have an eating addiction and you can't stop eating. And she was a large woman, as you can imagine. And I said, so what's the benefit you're getting out of that? Oh, she says, there's no benefit. Look at me. I'm overweight. It's causing problems. And I said, stop. What's the benefit you're getting out of it? She goes, there isn't any. I can't think of it. What's the benefit you're getting out of it? You must be doing it there. You would stop if you would. What's the benefit you're getting? And finally she paused. She got present, quit running the racket and the story and the cover up dodging mechanism, the social, statements that are there. And I said, what are you getting out of it? And she says, everybody in my family is large. If I'm not large, I don't feel like I'm part of my family. And she got teary-eyed. I said, great. What's the next benefit getting out of this? And she said, my sister used to bully me and push me around, and she's bigger than I was when I was young. And I made sure that she couldn't push me around. I always made sure I was bigger than her. And she's still big? Yes. Okay, good. What's another benefit you got? And then she said a big one that gully washed her, brought tears out of her eyes. She said, one time I went on a weight loss program and I lost 45 pounds and I started to get a little bit of a figure. And for the first time in my life, a man approached me. I didn't have a lot of experience with that. And I thought, the man loves me. And the very first time we went out, well, we made love. The next morning, I never saw him again. And about 6 weeks later, I found out I have a baby coming. I'm Catholic. I'm Spanish descent. I was so angry at him never being seen again. And then being pregnant, I was so angry at myself. I felt shame. I felt foolish. I felt vulnerable. I was angry and bitter. I didn't want to have a child. I didn't want to have an abortion. I couldn't make my mind up. It was torture. It's the most painful thing I ever experienced. I chose the abortion. I've had to deal with it ever since. She cried. And she said, one thing I never did is I never allowed myself to be vulnerable for a man again. And I always kept my weight on because I associated it with losing weight. I said, good. What's another benefit? And she says, I'm in kind of a TV industry, as you can see. And from my breast up, smooth skin, very thick hair, voluptuous. From there down, bowling pin. So I make sure I'm only seen from there up. And every time I've tried to lose weight, my skin sags a bit and I don't feel as well and I don't look as well. And I'm making sure that I'm keeping my skin smooth because people always compliment me on my skin. And we went down through this question and I asked her, and we got 75 unconscious benefits brought into a conscious awareness. When she got through, she said, I really don't have an intention to lose weight, do I? I said, not until we can come up with a viable alternative way of getting those same benefits with an alternative action. I mean, that's totally doable. But first, I want you to know that you're more empowered than you think. You're not this disempowered individual. You, going through your life, navigated through and strategized and found a way of getting all the things you wanted by this one thing called eating, which is actually quite an ingenious strategy, a simple process of eating that gives you some pleasure to satisfy all those concerns. So I don't want to judge you for that. I just want you to know you're empowered and you have the power to shift it now that you're aware of that. And so we started going through each one of those benefits and looking for viable alternative pathways to get those same benefits. until some ideas came. And then we linked them to what was most valuable to her by asking how specific doing that's going to help you fulfill what's truly meaningful in your life. And then we turned around and de-linked the previous behavior of eating to what was most important, and started to, in a sense, use the operant model of, Skinner and Pavlov to readjust her perceptions and neuroplastic pathways, the way she perceived getting those outcomes in life, and shifted her over a period, not just those 2 hours. I had to sit down and work with her a number of occasions to do that. But that changed her eating pattern because she had unconscious motives that she didn't realize, and many addictive behaviors. I worked with a heroin addict in Los Angeles also that was a famous movie star, but was using heroin every day. But all the roles he was doing in the movie industry was always about being a stoned hippie kind of guy that looked like he was on heroin. And he made millions. And then when he got older and he stopped getting those roles, he stopped his drugs because it was a strategy to look the part, be the part, and get those opportunities, because he was not even acting. He was just being stoned. So first thing I do is I try to help them understand that you're more empowered than you realize, and don't give away your power and believe it's some sort of anthropomorphic system out there that you have to subordinate to, because the real truth is you have a tremendous power inside you, but you sometimes are not conscious of the strategies you're using. And there's nothing wrong. You don't need to say I've messed up or anything. You just need to be able to say thank you to yourself. And no matter what I've done or not done, I'm worthy of love, and I have the power to transform my life.
Would you say this was hooked into the values? Because I know the book, The Value Factor, is one of your biggest.
Yeah, I think that every decision you make is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage or disadvantage to what you believe is most valuable in your life. My highest value is teaching. It's been my dream since I was 17. I'm 67 now. So I teach every day, and I made sure I structured my life and delegated everything else away. I'm useless everywhere else. That's about all I can do is share. I'm pretty well useless. I mean, I haven't cooked since I was 24. I haven't driven a car in 32 years. I delegate everything. I even jokingly say to my girlfriend, I said, look, if I was to get you Hugh Jackman or Brad Pitt or Gerard Butler or, George Clooney to make love on my behalf, would you still love me? Every time the girlfriend says, I would love you even more. I delegate everything. I delegate everything. So I don't, because anytime you're doing lower priority things, you devalue yourself and put yourself in your amygdala, and then you become vulnerable. I always say that addictive behavior is a compensation for unfulfilled highest values. If you're filling your day with something deeply meaningful, deeply important, you're not going to overeat. It's like a woman who's about to get married in 10 days and she wants to get in that special wedding dress. She's not going to pig out and overdrink and overparty and everything else on those 10 days.
Yeah.
Now, the night of the wedding, watch out. She'll catch up.
And her husband better watch out too.
No, the husband better watch out, because you better shellac that and get that a picture of that before it's too late. But the point is that when you have something deeply meaningful to you and you get engaged, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the forebrain, and literally the forebrain, the executive center, the gratitude center, literally mitigates the volatilities of the impulses and instincts of the amygdala, where the addictive behaviors come from. And you're not going to have out of control behavior when you're doing something inspiring and meaningful that you feel called in your life to fulfill, that serves.
Yeah.
He explained me.
Yeah.
He just explained me so I don't go crazy.
I absolutely agree with all of that. Now, there are some people I know that I don't even think they understand what values they have. It's almost like they have no value. They don't know, don't care, not interested. How does someone find their value?
Well, their values, I call it the hierarchy of values, because we're making decisions based on what our values are. And if you look really carefully, your life demonstrates your values. My life demonstrates my values of teaching and researching and writing, because I do it every day, 7 days a week. And I travel all the time. So those are my values. So, I don't have a value on cooking because I haven't cooked since I was 24. So that's 43 years. So your life demonstrates what you value. If you look at how you fill your space, your personal and your intimate space is 1.5 foot, personal is about 4 feet in proxemics. And the personal and intimate space reveals what's valuable to you, because anything you keep in there is valuable, and anything that's not important, you push away. And then you look at time, you make time, find time, spend time on things that are valuable, and you run out of time and don't want to spend time on things that aren't. And then you look at where it energizes. You're energized by things that are high in your values, and you're de-energized by things that are not. And then how you spend your money. You find money, make money, spend money on things that are valuable, but you don't want to spend money on things that aren't. And then you look at where you're most organized and where you're most disciplined, and what is it you think about, visualize, and internal dialogue with yourself about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true, not fantasies that don't show evidence, but evidence of coming true. Then you look at what you want to converse with other people about most, which is anything to do with maximizing human awareness and potential for me. And then you look at what inspires you, brings tears to your eyes, and what are the common denominators of people who inspire you. You look at what you love, reading about, studying about, learning about, that you just can't wait to go and fill your mind with, food for thought, and what are the most consistent, persistent goals that you have that are coming true. If you look, there's a pattern there. I've been doing it for 43 and a half years, taking hundreds of thousands of people through this process. And it is a pattern that reveals itself if you answer honestly. But what many people do is they compare themselves to others, sometimes put people on pedestals and think, oh, they're more successful, more intelligent, more this, inject values from others, cloud the clarity of their own calling, and confuse themselves about what they're committed to. But that highest value is the calling, the purpose. And it is the one that's most fulfilling. And you are spontaneously inspired to want to do that. And finding that is where we excel. And doing lower priority things, we need external motivation to keep us doing that. And so we end up subordinating and offloading decisions to other people and not allowing ourselves to realize our genius and our magnificence and our empowered state. So prioritizing our life and filling our day with the things that are most important, planting flowers in the garden of our mind, is greater than pulling weeds and dealing with the distractions, according to Parkinson's law.
This program of ours is a metaphysical program. You mentioned the soul. Give you a couple of minutes. You want to say something about that?
Love to. I like to think of the soul as just the acronym, the state of unconditional love. When we exaggerate ourselves and look down on people and sometimes resent them and puff ourselves up, that's inauthentic. When we look up to people and exaggerate them and minimize ourselves and go into shame, that's inauthentic. But when we actually put them in our heart and have equanimity within us and equity between us and them, and we actually realize that they're just a reflection, an intimate reflection of everything that we may not have owned but now can own, we actually have love for them, and we're not exaggerating and minimizing. We're not wearing our personas and masks. We're just being our being. The essence of our being is the soul, the state of unconditional love. And we realize that what we see in others is the perfect reflection of what we can love in ourselves. Thank you for them, grace. And that's our authentic self. That's our soul. Our soul is constantly trying to express itself, and the magnificence of ourself is greater than all the fantasies we impose on ourselves and all the personas and facades that we might wear. So we're not here to put people on pedestals or pits. We're here to put them in our heart. And that liberates us from the illusions that disempower us and the confusions of trying to change others into us or us into others. We're not here to fix anybody. We're here to realize that our human will can be part of the divine will in a state of the soul where there's nothing to fix as it is. And we're grateful and graced. And that's where we're most profound. And that's where genius and inspirations and our calling and our inner message, our divine design is revealed to us that we can fulfill. So yeah, our soul is the essence of our being, and it's greater than the existence of our illusions the personas that we sometimes wear.
Oh,
isn't that great?
It's
That's
more
everything.
than great.
Everything we teach wrapped up in a minute and a half.
Exactly. Thank you for entering my heart, and everyone watching this. I'm sure everyone's hearts are now completely open.
Yes.
So delicious.
That's what we're here
so
for.
delicious. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have you spend time with us, Dr. Demartini. We are out of time, but I want to let everyone know about your website, which is drdemartini.com. Please, everyone, go and have a look at that. And we're now going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll see you back here for the Circle of 12.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I don't know about you. I'm still recovering from Dr. Demartini's wonderful presentation. He's an intelligent, smart guy.
Yes, but he's also such a beacon of hope. That story and his mum, I was melting in the chair, and how much love just exudes straight into that heart center. Oh, how amazing.
When we booked him on the show and all of that, and we asked him what questions should we ask, he said, ask about anything.
Yeah.
Anything. And he said, I'll give you my best. And he did. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I hope everyone goes and follows up and has a look at his website, because just amazing. And I love how he talked about the magnificence, and that was Kryon's theme in the channel.
It's true. Yeah.
Amazing.
He used the word.
So let's focus on our magnificence as we prepare to enter the circle of 12. And I invite you to close your beautiful, precious eyes. And you may even place your hands on your heart, that beautiful heart center. It's through our open hearts that we get to experience the connection that we're all sharing in this moment. And feel the magnificence of that connection. For some, it can be difficult for them to feel their own magnificence. So let's begin by feeling the magnificence of this open heart connection we are all sharing in this moment. Feel the wave of love that we have for each other. And where is that love generated? Where does that come from? If you can feel it, then it's being generated from you. Because inside you, just like Kryon says, is your magnificence. It's not coming from outside of you. It's being generated within you. And it's also within you that you have the ability to receive it from the magnificence of others who are sending it from within themselves. And so in this posture of beautiful magnificence, let us now welcome Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon. Come a little closer. Today, during the channel, we talked about things which were hidden in plain sight. I don't know how many of you understand fully the things that are part of you. Part of you that perhaps you never thought were part of you. Things that you might be able to actually do. There has been the idea of intent being the catalyst for changing reality. Now, this is taught by many today because of that which they've discovered, even measured through what is called the field. The field is simply something that has revealed itself in these last years as a tool for you to understand that so much more is possible than you felt was. And that it could actually affect your life in a way that was positive. Dear ones, there's so much of this these days. Much is being delivered to the planet right now that will eventually manifest itself as other things hidden in plain sight. We've spoken about some of these already that might then solve some of the planet's issues that you have right now. including the issues of those who go hungry. What if they were able to grow food like they never were able to grow food before in ways they didn't understand they even could? Energy, which is available and has always been available through a power source which is easy to use and manipulate, but that you never wanted to because it didn't make sense at the time. It was easier to dig things out of the dirt and use the planet's resources and pollute the air than to use something that was hidden in plain sight all the time. And that's coming. That's in the field even as I speak, dear ones. And the issue of health, that which you are going through right now. What if there were easier solutions to that which is being presented today for you to get through that which is a pandemic? What if there were things from the earth that would work? If they would be allowed to be presented, you'll see they'll work. And, dear ones, they will be presented, and there will be allowed. Well, we've told you before, there are revelations coming, there are changes coming, there are dominoes which will fall that are large. We've told you that before, and you can read into that anything you wish. This is the promise of what we have said. We'll come to this planet in these new times, including a realization from so many of you that perhaps the earth is not all that you've been told, or that your spirituality or your connection to spirit, God, is all that you've been told. What if there was more? Do you believe at this point in time that you know everything there is to know? And of course you would say, of course not. History has shown that we grow and we learn. The inventions that are there and all the things that we use today have been presented over the years. So that would be an acknowledgement, would it not, that you grow in knowledge over time, that there are discoveries over time, and there's research over time, there's energies discovered over time that were always there. And if you say yes to that, I will say, and then why do you shut the door on the idea that that could also happen with your relationship to God? Perhaps the several thousand-year-old systems that you're working with right now on the planet, which you call major religions, can also change. And they change because you've learned more about your relationship to Spirit, more about perhaps what was meant by the masters who walked on the planet, what they really had to say. That is the premise of everything we teach, that God never changes, but that relationship to you does, and the energy of the planet is starting to shift and change in that area which allows it. And you can open up, perhaps. There are those who would then question that. I say to you this: why don't you become neutral for a moment and ask that beautiful God that you worship, could it be that there's more? And be open to the answer. And I think you'll get an answer, and chills will come to say, why don't you study it? Why don't you ask it again? Why don't you try things you hadn't tried before? There are those who will still grovel in the dirt and say they are not worthy to look upon the face of God. And when you ask them why, they'll say, because it's in Scripture. It's the Word of God. And we'll ask them, well, did the finger of God write that, or did men write that? What's the answer to that one? And they'll say, well, it's still Scripture, and it's still profoundly what God wants. And then we say, do you really think God wants you to grovel in the dirt? And some of them will say, yes, because that's what we've been told. And others will say, well, I have not thought about it. And when you start perhaps analyzing why you do the things you do, just like the guest today said, why don't you look at your perceptions? Why don't you examine why you do what you do? And there were those who realized, well, I do what I do because I was trained that way and because that's my narrative and my parents did it, so I did it. And then you'll start realizing, well, perhaps there's something else that I could look at and change your perception about who you are and start to realize that the parent of your soul, God, created you magnificent and loves you beyond measure like you do your own children and would never ask you to grovel in the dirt like humans have done. That's the premise of the work of Kryon, to expose the majesty, the magnificence of humanity and every single human. And to let the heart shine and love pour out where it hasn't poured before. And to love to pour in where it hasn't been poured before because you didn't let it. Because you were told you weren't worthy to let it. And now you are. Today in the circle of 12, I want to show you your majesty. I want to show you, old soul, if you want to go here and if you want to believe it, I would like to present to you something you don't expect. The bridge is before you. It's always before you. But in these times with me, I invite you to take my hand and go across that bridge. That bridge, if you haven't seen it before, or haven't then gone through this before, this exercise, this meditation, takes you from the known to the unknown, and you go there with pure intent, dear ones. If you're casually listening to this, it's going to be funny. That's how the perception is of someone who sees metaphysics from a four-dimensional perspective. It looks odd and comical until you go into that place and realize it's a reality you didn't know about, and that's why it looks odd and funny. But when you get to that place you didn't know about and you realize there's a reality there that you didn't expect, that's multidimensional, that's when you get to realize your perspective on your life is in a box. It's in a four-dimensional box. And that's why everything around you that you don't expect or people do that's outside of that box looks odd to you. But when you get out of the box, you start to understand and realize there's more than the box. And it's real as the box. And this is one of them. Dear ones, if you're ready, if there's intent, if you want to, take my hand. Let's go across the bridge. As you travel across the bridge, there's a mist in the middle between the destinations of known to unknown, and you go walking through the mist, and that is, dear ones, the metaphor, the veil. The veil hides that which is your soul from you, that is your own consciousness, which hides it. And the veil is getting thinner for many as they realize that on the other side of the bridge is a reality they didn't expect. It's a reality of their soul, and that is a multidimensional part of you, them, everyone. All humans have a soul. And the soul doesn't reside in heaven. The soul resides inside the human. And the veil then separates that, which is your four dimensions, from that which is your divineness. But now we're looking into your divineness, and it's beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, if you could just sit for a moment and imagine the greatest thing you could ever see, the stars, the skies, the ability perhaps to even see that spectrum of light that can't be seen by human eyes, or hear the spectrum of sound that cannot be heard with human ears, and recognize immediately that there's music in the universe and you're hearing it so profoundly that there are other souls there. There's ones you've loved and lost, and you sing their name in light, and there are angelic properties that you look at and can't believe, and beauty beyond, and colors you've never seen. And that's just a piece of it. And that's where you are right now. I want you to go through a door that's always there, a door to a theater, a metaphor, a place where things happen for you of realization, of self-realization, where you realize things about yourself and your soul that you never even knew were possible, And some of them are outlandishly miraculous, and you even wonder if it's true. Go through the door and see that room, perhaps, that theater. It's a little different. This one has a round dome around it, a big one, the theater with a dome. But there's no audience today. There's no chairs today. I want you to go up on that stage, because there are chairs on the stage. One chair and another smaller one. The smaller one is apart from yours, but it faces yours. Obviously, you're going to meet someone. So you're going to sit in your chair, dear ones, as you always do, and get ready to meet a fictitious character you're going to meet. A character we've never spoke about before, and one that only exists here for the moment. How about that for being multi-dimensional? Some will say, well, that's just good storytelling, Kryon. It's the hero's story. Indeed, it's good storytelling. That is a premise we use for you. That's what your consciousness loves to see. And that is revealing. For many times, a story says it all. When you hear the story from someone else's life, it says it all about them. So we tell the story here about you and the history of your soul. A little man, he's a man, comes up onto the stage and sits in his smaller chair. There's a metaphor, dear ones, for why he's small and why his chair is small. Perhaps you can figure it out later. Not everything is going to be revealed all the time. I would like you to meet the Star Master. The dome above this theater is a planetarium. On that dome will be projected star systems in all their four-dimensional glory and beyond. You will see time, you will see stars, you will see colors. You can zoom in to various planets as you wish, and the Star Master is going to allow all of it right now. And he's going to speak to you, and he's going to say your name, and he's going to welcome you in love. In love. And he'll tell you this, he expected you here. And he'll say, dear ones, are you ready to see your lineage, your history? And he'll invite you to look up into the ceiling of this dome as he starts to show in beautiful graphics that you can't understand how they could be so magnificent and seem so present to you. And he'll start to tell you the last planet that you lived on. And he'll show you the constellation of where you were. And then he will zoom into the planet and start the history of what you experienced there. And he will go on, and your mouth will begin to drop open as you realize who you were and what you did before you ever got to Earth. You'll meet those who were there, and he will introduce them to you if you wish. The Star Master can do anything here. And when that has been exhausted and hours have gone by, he will say to you, after all those lifetimes on that last planet, are you ready to see where you were before then? And you'll say, what? There was more? He may go to another galaxy, or not. When he takes you to yet another planet in another constellation, and he'll describe that constellation and its attributes and who you were, what you looked like. And he'll, in the process, discover for you the system of being an old soul and how it applies even to here. And in the process, the theme will be the beautiful, amazing love of God that was throughout this, because each one of those planets was like Earth. Because it was a place where you learned and where you raised the planet's vibration, and when the planet went into ascension, and what happened after that. And your decision then to go to another one and another one. And it seems endless, your history of what you did. And the Star Master continues and continues. And I want you to understand and realize right now, that's magnificent. Beyond earth you are. Did you ever think that might be the lineage of your soul? And I'll tell you, old soul, every one of you who's listening to me right now, old soul, it was. I want you to stay there. Because when he is finished, if he ever does, you're going to come away knowing how much grander you are and what your soul has been through than anything here. And it's going to make the pandemic look awfully small. You'll get through it. Dear ones, I am Kryon, in love with all of you. Stay here and enjoy what the Star Master has to show you and the beauty of all of it, couched in purpose, compassion, and the love of the Creator. And so it is.